Nicole Steele, long time no see. How are you?
Hi, Todd. Great, thank you.
It's been a little bit too long. I ducked into the office the other day, had a little bit of a sneaky lunch together, which was good fun, which kind of spurred this episode off when you and I were chatting about just sort of general property maintenance, management, and all the rest of it. And it's like, wait a second, I reckon this is a good one to share with everyone.
Yep, we had a great chat. It was lovely.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, so if we can kick it off straight into the questions, being a slice, we're a little bit more limited for time. I wanted to get straight into and I know this is going to be obviously South Australian based for yourself, but what is and isn't an emergency? And for everyone listening on Spotify and iTunes right now, I'm doing like air quotes now so we can get a bit more of a definition around that.
Basically, it's a scenario where the tenant's safety might be at risk, or the property is going to get excessive damage if left unattended to.
Okay, so safety or excessive damage. And how's like excessive damage kind of quantified? Is that still a bit vague, or is it something that's a bit more measurable?
Well, hopefully the tenants use their common sense.
Common sense, yeah.
Basically, perhaps a storm damage where it's flooding into the roof cavity and into the house, or a dishwasher has burst and flooded the floor coverings in the kitchen and living area, something along those lines. So a safety risk would be something that's maybe broken or damaged from a fire or a storm that causes safety risk to the tenants, or a live wire that could be a safety risk to the tenant.
And do you find people sort of taking the mickey with this, or generally is it pretty good above board, or what's your experience on the ground?
Yeah, you know what? Generally they're okay. If they're educated at the start of the tenancy. So they talk through what exactly is emergency maintenance and what the protocols are. And most tenants are pretty good with that. You will get the tenants to say, oh, this is not working, but it's not actually an emergency. So we will then educate them to wait till Monday.
Okay, so let's say it is an emergency, and like the thing that actually kicked this conversation off between you and I was my experience that I already talked about in the introduction. What can investors do to make sure that they're really set up properly so they're not potentially going to get ripped off by a trade or have the wrong thing done by them when it comes to the trade side of things through PM?
Yeah, I think when you're looking into a property management company is really having an understanding of their policy and procedure for emergency maintenance and what it entails for them. So some companies I'm aware of that might have an after hours maintenance phone number where the tenant rings that number, and usually there's a property manager on call. They will either leave a message or they'll be answered, and then the property manager will go through the scenario and just actually check everything off and make sure it's actually an emergency.
Does everyone just pass around the on-call phone at the office? I never got to see that bit.
Yeah, so it's shared in larger companies, I believe. So our Owens Castle each week is shared around, so each person has a rostered week on. Okay,
so it's not just drawing the short straw. It's like there's management behind it.
Yeah, unless you're a smaller boutique rent roll where you probably get stuck with it 24/7.
I don't know how you guys do it.
Yeah. And then I know companies also will list, dedicated tradesmen in the tenancy agreements where a tenant is called to call the electrician or call the plumber directly. And then that plumber is someone that they, believe is responsible enough to go through those questions and actually make sure it's an emergency, and that they would then attend if need be or put it off until Monday.
And that's one of the important things that I think can really save a lot of investors money, because as much as I know this isn't the most exciting episode that we've ever done, but I think that when it comes to monitoring your cash flow, it's a really important one to understand, because that phone call there, that could be the difference between a $300, $400, $500 call out or not. And having that set up is obviously going to make a big difference to the bottom line. But as far as any final thoughts, is there anything else that people really need to understand? Because what I've got so far is make sure that your property managers are actually setting up your tenants to understand what is and isn't an emergency. So everyone's actually on the same page, which is going to really bring this down to start with. Then making sure that you've got the right trades under your belt and everyone's happy with who's actually there, so they can call first and even go, hold on a second, let me talk you through this first. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't an emergency. Is there anything else people really should be aware of?
Yeah, I think having that relationship with those tradesmen are vital to make sure that, your plumber is reliable and isn't going to take the advantage of those call-out fees. We have a great plumber that, for instance, did a repair in a property recently that was fully renovated, and somehow the tradesman had put a nail into one of the small water pipes.
Yeah.
And it didn't burst until, of course, the tenant had moved in. It was like a week or two into it. The tenant's seen this water coming through the power points and the skirting boards. So we called the plumber. He went out there. But what he did is he didn't repair the whole thing. He literally just patched it up as quickly as possible. and then reattended on Monday and actually completed the whole work job that was required, which would cost a lot more if you did it on the weekend.
Okay, so instead of doing it at double time or whatever it would be, then that makes sense.
So it's having your property management company, ensuring they have the right tradespeople with the right relationships to get the benefit financially as a landlord, and it's not just a tick and flick. I've dealt with it. Don't care how much it costs them.
Love it. Nicole Steele from Owens Castley, thank you so much for jumping on the show. I'm sure we'll see you again soon.
Thanks, Todd.